I sat in the armchair, nervously clutching my cup of tea, staring at the wedding photo on the coffee table. My fingers traced the glass frame, the edges cool against my skin. Tom and I looked so happy in that picture, his arm wrapped around my waist, his smile wide and genuine, the way he always smiled at me. My dress was perfect, my makeup flawless, and the world had felt right. That day, I had been certain that we would have forever. Funny how things change. I took a sip of my tea, but it had gone cold. The bitterness settled on my tongue, mirroring the thoughts swirling in my mind. Megan sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap, eyes cast downward. She had been talking for a while now, but I barely heard her. I was too busy replaying everything in my head, every choice, every mistake. "I made a mistake," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I let out a slow exhale. The audacity of it, the sheer nerve. Megan had always been confident, always knew exactly what to say, exactly how to push me in the direction she wanted. She had been my best friend since childhood, my confidant, the person I trusted the most. And maybe that was my mistake, because when she told me I deserved better than Tom, I believed her. "You deserve more," she had said one night, a glass of wine in her hand, her eyes full of conviction. "You're young, beautiful. You can find someone who will make you happy. Tom, he's just not the one." I had been in a rut then. 7 years of marriage had dulled the excitement. Tom was good, too good, predictable, steady, reliable. There were no grand gestures, no wild romance, no spontaneous adventures. It was safe, comfortable. But was I happy? Megan had planted the seed of doubt, and once it took root, it grew fast. She listened as I cried over my uncertainties, as I questioned everything I had built with Tom. She encouraged my doubts, nurtured them, and eventually she convinced me that leaving him was the only choice. So I did. And as it turned out, it was the biggest mistake of my life, because Megan didn't just give me advice. She took my place. I didn't immediately understand what had happened. At first, I tried to convince myself that it was all a coincidence, that it couldn't possibly be true. But the truth is hard to ignore when it's right in front of you. A month after the divorce, I saw them together for the first time. I walked into the cafe where Megan and I often met, and froze at the entrance. Tom was sitting at the corner table. Across from him was Megan. They were speaking quietly, but their postures, their leaning bodies, their gazes, it was impossible to mistake. Something inside me snapped. I stood in the doorway for a long time, until someone behind me cleared their throat, demanding to pass. I instinctively stepped aside but couldn't look away. Thoughts spun in my mind. Maybe it's just a friendly meeting, played like a fool by the one person I had trusted most. Megan had known exactly what she was doing from the start. She hadn't been concerned about my happiness. She had wanted Tom, and she had been willing to destroy my marriage to get him. But why had she come back now? Why sit across from me, eyes downcast, whispering that she had made a mistake? I needed answers. I spent the next few days pretending everything was fine. I went to work, smiled at my coworkers, even forced myself to go out for drinks when a colleague invited me. But beneath the surface, my mind was working, piecing together the truth. Megan had always been a strategist. She didn't do anything without a reason. If she was here now, telling me she had regrets, it meant something had gone wrong, something she hadn't expected. And then, as if the universe itself was handing me my answer, I saw it. I was on my way home from work when I passed a small cafe. The same cafe where I had once seen Megan and Tom together for the first time. And there, sitting by the window, was Tom. alone. I stopped in my tracks. He was staring down at his coffee, his fingers absent-mindedly tracing the rim of the cup. His shoulders were slumped, his usually neat hair slightly disheveled. He looked exhausted. I shouldn't have cared. I should have kept walking. But my feet had a mind of their own. Before I knew it, I was inside. I walked up to the counter, ordered a drink, and casually glanced in his direction. He hadn't noticed me yet. His eyes were unfocused, lost in thought. And then, as if sensing my presence, he looked up. For a moment, we just stared at each other. I expected him to look away, to pretend he hadn't seen me. But he didn't. Instead, something flickered across his face. Something I couldn't quite place. Regret. Sadness. I took my drink and turned toward the door, my heart pounding. I had seen enough. Tom wasn't happy, and that meant Megan's perfect little plan had started to crack. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet. But one thing was certain. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't sleep that night. My mind wouldn't stop spinning, replaying every interaction, every word, every moment I had shared with Megan and Tom. I kept thinking back to that day in the cafe, the way Tom had looked at me, the way he seemed lost, almost hollow. It was a stark contrast to the version of him I had once known. The man I had loved was always steady, always composed. But the man I had seen that night, he looked like he was unraveling. I needed to know why. The next morning I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I reached out to Tom. I didn't overthink the message. I simply typed, "Hey, I saw you yesterday. You okay?" And then I waited. An hour passed. Then 2. I started to regret sending it, wondering if I had just opened a door that should have stayed shut. But just as I was about to put my phone down, the screen lit up with his name. "Can we talk?" My stomach flipped. I hesitated for only a moment before replying, "Sure." We agreed to meet later that evening. Not at our old apartment, not at his new place, not anywhere that carried the weight of our past. Instead, we chose neutral ground, a quiet bar on the other side of town, where no one would recognize us, where we could talk without judgmental stares. The moment I walked in and saw him sitting there, waiting for me, I felt something shift inside me. He looked different. Tired, yes, but also like he had been carrying something heavy for far too long. I sat down across from him, my heart pounding. For a long moment neither of us spoke, and then finally he exhaled and said, "I should have seen it sooner." I frowned. "Seen what?" He looked down at his drink, swirling the liquid inside. "Megan," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I should have realized what she was doing. Something in my chest tightened. "What do you mean?" He let out a bitter laugh. "She wanted me the moment she knew she couldn't have me. She fed you all those lies, pushed you toward the divorce, and then swooped in the second you were gone. And I was too blind to see it." I stared at him, my pulse hammering in my ears. I had suspected it, of course. I had spent months piecing it together, realizing the manipulation, the betrayal. But hearing it from him, it made my stomach churn. "She regrets it now," I said carefully, watching his reaction. His jaw clenched. "Yeah, she does." I leaned forward. "Why?" Tom looked up at me then, his eyes filled with something unreadable. "Because she thought taking me from you would make her happy," he said slowly. "But she didn't love me. Not really. She just loved the idea of winning." The words hit me like a slap. She didn't love me. She just loved the idea of winning. It all made sense now. Maybe she's just supporting him. But then Megan laughed. That special laugh I knew so well. She placed her hand over his, squeezed it. Tom didn't pull away. I turned around and left, not waiting for my coffee. At that moment, I didn't know it was just the beginning. In the following months, Their relationship became more obvious. They weren't hiding it. Megan posted pictures. Sometimes they were walking in the park, other times having dinner at a restaurant. People began whispering. Some tried to comfort me, saying it was wrong, that a friend doesn't do that. Others, on the contrary, said that maybe Megan had just realized she loved Tom. But I didn't need other people's opinions. I needed to understand. How could I have been so blind? Months passed. I tried to move on, convincing myself that they didn't matter to me. I changed my hairstyle, went on dates, kept myself busy with work. I pretended everything was fine. Then, 6 months after the divorce, I heard they were engaged. That's when I stopped pretending. I didn't cry when I found out. I thought I would. I thought the news would shatter me all over again, but instead I just sat there, staring at my phone, rereading the message from a mutual acquaintance. Megan and Tom are engaged. The words felt surreal, like they belonged to someone else's life. I let the phone slip from my fingers and exhaled slowly. So this is it, I thought. The final confirmation that Megan hadn't just manipulated me into leaving my husband. She had done it so she could take him for herself. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to hate them both. But what made it worse was that deep down, a part of me still loved Tom, and an even bigger part of me hated myself for giving him up so easily. The engagement news spread quickly. People at work whispered about it when they thought I wasn't listening. Old friends sent awkward messages, asking if I was okay. I ignored them all. What was I supposed to say? That I had been a fool? That I had ruined my own life because I trusted the wrong person? I convinced myself that I was done thinking about them. I wouldn't dwell on the past. I wouldn't stalk their social media. I wouldn't waste another second on regrets. But then, one evening, my resolve shattered. I was home, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, when Megan's new post appeared. It was a picture of her and Tom, standing in their new apartment, arms wrapped around each other. The caption read, "Lucky to be building a life with my best friend." My stomach twisted. Best friend. The words felt like acid. I clicked on her profile, scrolling back through the months of posts. There it was, the carefully curated love story she had crafted. Romantic getaways, candlelit dinners, weekends in the countryside. It was everything I had once shared with Tom. But now, Megan had taken my place. And then I saw it. A picture from nearly a year ago. A group photo at a dinner party, taken just 2 weeks after my divorce. Megan and Tom sat side by side, their hands almost touching. It was subtle, but the familiarity was there. My blood ran cold. Had it started before my divorce? Had she been pushing me toward leaving Tom because she wanted him for herself the entire time? A sickening realization settled in my gut. I had been played. I closed my phone and stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. My heartbreak had turned into something sharper, something darker. I wasn't sad anymore. I was furious. Anger is a strange thing. It starts as a flicker, a small flame licking at the edges of your mind. But if you feed it, if you let it grow, it becomes something else entirely. A firestorm. A force you can't control. And as I sat there, staring at my ceiling, that fire spread through me until it consumed every trace of sorrow, every lingering regret. I had been used. Megan had never truly wanted Tom. She had wanted to prove that she could take him. And once she had, once she realized that he wasn't some prize to be won, the illusion shattered. I leaned back in my seat, letting the weight of it all sink in. The anger I had been carrying for so long burned even hotter now. But it wasn't just directed at Megan. It was at myself, for trusting her, for letting her guide me into ruining my own life, for being so damn blind. Tom sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. "I think she's looking for a way out," he admitted. "She hasn't said it outright, but I can feel it. She's distant. Cold. She knows she made a mistake. I swallowed hard. And you? What do you want? He looked at me then. Really looked at me. And for a brief second I saw something flicker in his expression. Something familiar. But then, just as quickly, it was gone. I don't know, he admitted. But I know I don't want to be someone's second choice. His words cut through me, sharp and precise. I nodded slowly, because I understood exactly what he meant. For the first time since this whole mess started, I realized that maybe this wasn't just about Megan. Maybe it wasn't even about Tom. Maybe it was about me. And maybe, just maybe, it was time I finally took my life back. The realization settled deep in my chest, heavy yet oddly freeing. For so long I had let other people dictate my choices. Megan with her clever manipulations. Tom with his quiet passivity. Even my own doubts, whispering that I hadn't been enough. But sitting across from Tom, seeing the exhaustion in his face, the regret lining his features, I understood something crucial. I wasn't going to let this define me. We sat there in silence for a while, the weight of everything stretching between us. I could feel the unspoken words lingering in the air, the questions neither of us dared to ask. Did we still love each other? Could we ever go back? Did we even want to? But before I could say anything, Tom let out a humorless chuckle and shook his head. "You know what's ironic?" he said. "I thought I was making the right choice too." My throat tightened. "Did you?" He met my gaze. "At first, yeah. I told myself that you leaving meant we weren't meant to be. That Megan and I, maybe we were supposed to happen." He exhaled, shaking his head. "But it never felt right. Not really." I swallowed hard. "Then why did you stay?" His expression darkened. "For the same reason you listened to her. Because she made me believe it was the only option." The words sent a fresh wave of anger through me. Not just at Megan, but at myself, at Tom, at both of us for being so easily led. We had been puppets in her game, and now that the strings had snapped, we were left with the wreckage. Tom leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. "Sarah, do you ever wonder if we made a mistake?" His voice was quiet, hesitant. It wasn't a plea, not exactly. It was more of a confession, one I wasn't sure how to respond to. Did I wonder? Every single day. But it didn't matter, did it? The past was the past, and we couldn't rewrite it. Even if we had been pushed apart by someone else's manipulation, we had still made our choices. I had walked away. He had let me go. I forced myself to smile, even though my chest ached. "I think wondering won't change anything," I said. "We have to live with what happened." Tom studied me for a long moment, and then slowly he nodded. Maybe that was the real tragedy of it all. Not that we had lost each other, but that we had lost the versions of ourselves who had once believed in forever. We left the bar separately that night, and as I stepped out into the cool air, I felt a strange sense of closure. I had spent so long grieving, resenting, replaying every moment of my past. But now, for the first time in a long time, I felt done. At least I thought I was. Until Megan showed up at my door the next morning. Her eyes were red, her hair disheveled. She looked nothing like the confident, polished woman I'd once admired. "I need to talk," she said, her voice hoarse. I folded my arms. "I think we've said enough," she shook her head desperately. "Please, just listen." Against my better judgment, I let her in, and the moment she stepped inside, she broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she sank onto my couch, burying her face in her hands. "I ruined everything," she whispered. I thought I was winning, but I destroyed everything. I watched her, my emotions a tangled mess. A year ago I might have comforted her. A year ago I might have believed her. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Still, I had to ask. "Why are you here, Megan?" She looked up at me, her expression raw. "Because I don't know who I am anymore," she admitted. "And I think I lost my best friend." Her words hit harder than I expected, because as much as I hated her for what she had done, I realized something painful. I had lost my best friend too, but some things once broken could never be put back together, and I wasn't sure I wanted to try. Megan sat there, waiting for me to say something, to offer her some kind of comfort, some reassurance that we could patch things up, that we could pretend the past hadn't happened. But I just stood there, staring at her, feeling nothing but exhaustion. She had taken everything from me, my trust, my marriage, my sense of self. And now that she had ruined her own life, she expected me to pick up the pieces with her. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. "You don't get to do this, Megan." She flinched. "Do what?" "Come to me now. Cry to me now." My voice was steady, but inside I was shaken. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You pushed me to leave Tom, and the second I was gone. You took him for yourself. And now that you've realized he isn't some trophy, you want sympathy. From me." Her eyes filled with fresh tears, but I refused to let them move me. I had spent too long feeling sorry for her, making excuses for her. Not anymore. "I thought I loved him," she choked out. I don't know what I thought." I laughed bitterly. "No, you didn't love him, Megan. You loved winning. You loved proving to yourself that you could take what I had. And now that you've realized he's a real person, not some prize, you're done." She shook her head furiously. "That's not true." I narrowed my eyes. "Isn't it?" Silence stretched between us. She didn't have an answer, because we both knew I was right. I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Why are you really here?" She sniffled, looking down at her hands. "Because I don't have anyone else." I felt something twist inside me. Not sympathy, not really, but recognition. Megan had always thrived on being the center of attention, on surrounding herself with admirers. But now, for the first time, she had lost, and she didn't know how to handle it. For a brief second, I remembered what it was like to be her friend. Before the lies, before the betrayal. I remembered the sleepovers, the whispered secrets, the way we had once sworn we'd always have each other's backs. But that was a long time ago, and I wasn't that girl anymore. I took a deep breath and met her eyes. "Megan, I can't be that person for you anymore." Her face crumpled. "Sarah, please." "No." My voice was firm. "You didn't just take my husband. You took everything. You made me doubt myself. You made me think I was unhappy. You made me destroy my own life. And I let you. But I won't let you do it again." She let out a shaky breath, wiping her face. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. For the first time, I believed her. Megan had spent so much time chasing what wasn't hers, so much time taking instead of building, that now, when she was finally left with nothing, she didn't know how to move forward. I almost pitied her. Almost. But I had my own life to rebuild. I stepped back, crossing my arms. "That's not my problem." She looked at me, searching my face for any sign of softness, any sign that I might give in. But I didn't. Finally, she nodded, her lips trembling. And then, without another word, she stood and walked to the door. She paused before opening it, her back to me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't respond. She left, and just like that, she was gone. I stood there for a long time after she left, staring at the door, waiting for some kind of feeling to hit me. Relief, sadness, closure. but all I felt was empty. Not because I had lost her, but because I had finally, truly let her go. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first step toward finding myself again. In the days that followed, I found myself haunted by memories, not of Megan, not even of Tom, but of the person I used to be before all of this. The girl who had trusted too easily, who had believed in friendship and love without question. She felt like a stranger now, someone I could barely recognize. I went through the motions of my life, work, errands, casual conversations with co-workers, but everything felt muted, like I was living in a world where the colors had been drained. I had thought that letting go of Megan would feel like a victory, like the final act of reclaiming my life, but instead, I was left with an aching emptiness. One evening I found myself sitting on my couch, staring at my phone. My thumb hovered over Tom's name. I hadn't reached out to him since that night at the bar, and he hadn't contacted me either. I wondered if he was thinking about me, if he regretted everything as much as I did. But what was there to say? We made a mistake. We let someone else come between us. We let go too easily. No, it was more than that. We had been weak. I had been weak. I had let Megan's words poison me against my own happiness. And Tom, he had let himself be swept along in her tide. Maybe we had deserved this. A sharp knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, my breath caught. Tom stood there, looking just as hesitant, just as lost as I felt. I didn't know if I should come, he admitted, but I couldn't stop thinking about that night. I swallowed hard, stepping aside to let him in. We stood in my living room, awkward and uncertain, two people who had once been everything to each other but now felt like strangers. I saw Megan, I finally said. His jaw tightened. I figured she'd go to you. I let out a humorless laugh. She told me she made a mistake, that she didn't love you the way I did. His eyes flickered with something unreadable. Did you believe her? I thought about it, about the look in Megan's eyes, the raw regret in her voice. And then I thought about everything she had done, everything she had taken from me. No, I said simply. Tom sighed, running a hand through his hair. She left. I raised an eyebrow. Just like that. He nodded. Packed her things and went to stay with her sister. Said she needed time to find herself. A bitter taste filled my mouth. Megan had spent her whole life chasing what wasn't hers, only to realize too late that it never made her happy. I met Tom's gaze. So why are you here? He hesitated. Because I don't know what happens now. Neither did I. We had spent so much time apart, so much time tangled in other people's lies and our own mistakes. Could we ever go back? Did we even want to? I studied him. The man I had once built a life with, the man I had thrown away so easily. He was still familiar, still the same in so many ways. But we had both changed. Maybe the question wasn't whether we could go back. Maybe the question was whether we should try it all. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. Then I guess we figure it out. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Tom sat down on the couch, looking around my apartment like he was seeing it for the first time. In a way, he was. This wasn't the home we had shared, the space that had once been filled with the comfort of our quiet routines. This was my space now, smaller, lonelier, defined by the absence of everything we had built together. He ran a hand over his jaw, exhaling sharply. I don't know where to start. Neither did I. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the past pressing down on us. There were 100 things we could say, blame to assign, apologies to give, wounds to acknowledge. But where would it lead? I finally spoke. Did you love her? His eyes snapped to mine, startled by the question. Megan. I nodded. He hesitated, his fingers tightening around his knee. I wanted to. His voice was quiet, like he was confessing something to himself more than to me. At first, I told myself it was real, that maybe she saw something in me that you didn't. His words stung, but I didn't let it show. And then, I pressed. He let out a bitter laugh. And then I realized she didn't love me. She loved the idea of me, the victory of having me. He shook his head. It was never about us. It was about her. I swallowed hard. And what about us, Tom? He turned to me, his gaze searching. I don't know. I felt something crack inside me. I had spent so long regretting, so long wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. But now that he was here, now that we were actually confronting it, I didn't know what I wanted either. Do you regret it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Do you? I thought about it. Really thought about it. The pain, the betrayal, the sleepless nights spent replaying every conversation, every moment I had let Megan's words get inside my head, the way I had walked away from Tom, convinced I was doing the right thing, only to realize too late that I had let go of something I hadn't even fully understood. But at the same time, I had learned. I had grown. I had seen the truth about the people in my life. So did I regret it? I regret how it happened. I admitted. I regret letting her influence me. I regret hurting you. But I don't know if I regret the fact that we ended. Tom's face darkened slightly, and I saw the flicker of pain there. But he nodded slowly, like he understood. I used to think we were perfect, he said after a long pause. That we were solid, unshakable. He exhaled, shaking his head. But if we were, then none of this would have happened. Right? I looked away, my throat tightening. He was right. If we had been as strong as I once thought, Megan wouldn't have been able to drive that wedge between us. I wouldn't have let myself believe her. Tom wouldn't have let himself be pulled into her orbit. Maybe we had been doomed long before she ever whispered in my ear. I looked back at him, really taking him in, the man who had once been my everything, and I realized something. I think we were holding onto something that wasn't meant to last. I said softly, I think we loved each other, but we didn't fight for each other. We let it slip away too easily. Tom nodded, his eyes distant. Yeah. Another silence stretched between us, but this time it wasn't as heavy. We had both said it. We had both finally admitted the truth. And maybe that was the closure we had needed all along. I let out a slow breath, feeling something inside me loosen for the first time in years. So what now? Tom looked at me, a small, sad smile playing at the corner of his lips. Now, we move on. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to do just that. It took time, patience, and careful planning, but in the end justice was served. Megan had always played the game well, but she had never considered what would happen if someone played better. She had built her world on manipulation, on twisting people's trust for her own gain. She had whispered in my ear, torn apart my marriage, and then, when she had what she wanted, realized it was never about love. It was about winning. And now, she had lost everything. It started small. A few rumors spreading in her professional circle, whispers that Megan Wilson wasn't as trustworthy as she seemed. People started pulling away. Invitations dried up. Deals that once came easily to her fell through at the last moment. Then came the real blow. Tom and I had spent months untangling the truth, putting together the puzzle of her betrayal. It turned out Megan had always played a dangerous game, not just with emotions but with business. She had manipulated more than just me. She had cut corners in her career, taken credit for things she didn't do, and stepped on too many people to climb the ladder. And now, those people were ready to talk. One by one they came forward. Co-workers, former friends, even past relationships. They told stories of deceit, of stolen ideas, of a woman who had built her success on the backs of others. When the truth came out, Megan's world collapsed. She lost her job, blacklisted from her industry for ethical violations. Her reputation was in ruins, her social circle gone. She was left scrambling, grasping for any kind of lifeline, but there was nothing left to hold on to. And then, the final, crushing moment. She came to me again, not as the confident, cunning woman who had destroyed my marriage, but as a desperate, broken person who had finally realized she wasn't untouchable. She begged, not for forgiveness. Megan never truly knew how to apologize, but for help. I made mistakes, she said, her voice trembling. But you're the only one who understands me. I looked at her, the woman who had once been my closest friend, and felt nothing. No anger, no hatred. Just a cold, distant clarity. I had spent so long regretting, so long hurting. But now I saw it clearly. Megan had never won. She had never truly taken anything from me. Because I had rebuilt myself. I had learned. I had grown. She had only destroyed herself. I smiled, slow and deliberate. You're right, Megan. I do understand you. And then, without another word, I turned and walked away. She called my name, but I didn't look back, because I had already won.